You can kneel beside your child's bed and pray, "Father, thank you for caring for this family." Then walk into the kitchen, open an unexpected bill, and say, "We are never going to recover from this." You can place a hand upon your son or daughter and speak a beautiful blessing. Then, in a moment of frustration, declare, "You will always be this way. You never learn." You can confess peace in church on Sunday and fill the house with predictions of disaster on Monday. This is the hidden contradiction in many sincere Christian homes. The issue is not merely what we teach when the Bible is open. It is what we reveal when pressure enters the room. Your children may forget the words of the bedtime prayer, but they will remember what you repeatedly said when the money was low, when the report was troubling, when the plan failed, when the future became uncertain. They are listening for more than information. They are learning interpretation. The home is their first school of meaning. At the kitchen table, they learn whether money is a tool to steward or a terror to serve. In moments of failure, they learn whether a mistake can be corrected or must become an identity. When danger appears, they learn whether wisdom can act calmly or fear must control the atmosphere. Through ordinary conversation, they begin to decide whether tomorrow can be trusted. That does not mean one exhausted sentence has ruined your child. It does not mean a faithful parent never feels afraid, never speaks poorly, or never needs to repair a moment. The issue is not perfection. The issue is repetition. What language is being given the governing place? What conclusion does the household hear again and again? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. When pressure comes, the mouth reveals what has been growing within. Fear may knock at the door, but must fear be invited to interpret the future? The circumstance may be real, but must it receive the final word? This is where change begins, not with artificial cheerfulness, not with denying bills, pain, danger, or disappointment. It begins by learning to name the difficulty honestly, affirm what remains true, and take the next responsible step without turning today's trouble into tomorrow's prophecy. We are going to examine the language of the home, repair what fear has spoken, and build rhythms in which truth can be heard, felt, and lived. But first, we must understand what repeated words are building inside the children who hear them. Words are food for the inner life. A child consumes them before he knows how to examine them. He receives tone before theology, repetition before reasoning, atmosphere before explanation. Long before he can ask whether a statement is true, he has begun to build with what he hears. That is why Paul wrote that faith comes by hearing. Hearing is not merely the reception of sound. Repeated hearing gives a truth or a fear, a place within us. What enters the ear becomes an interpretation. Interpretation becomes expectation. Expectation begins to direct conduct. A child hears, "Nothing ever works for this family." Soon he interprets difficulty as evidence that failure is normal. He hears, "We will never have enough." Soon every expense feels like a threat. Every opportunity feels unreachable. Every act of generosity feels dangerous. He hears, "You always ruin things." Soon a mistake no longer means, "I did something wrong." It means, "Something is wrong with me." He hears, "People cannot be trusted." Soon caution becomes suspicion, and suspicion becomes isolation. These sentences may have been spoken in passing, but they do not always pass through the child. They can remain. They can settle. They can become the vocabulary through which the child later interprets God, himself, other people, and the future. This is the difference between formal instruction and ambient confession. Formal instruction occurs when the family gathers to pray or read scripture. Ambient confession is what fills the spaces between those moments. It is heard in the car after a disappointment, at the table during an argument, beside the stack of bills, in the hallway after bad news, and under the breath when patience is gone. The mouth does not merely describe what happened. It reveals the meaning the heart has assigned to what happened, and through repetition, it reinforces that meaning. The child is not only hearing, "This is difficult." He may be hearing, "Difficulty defeats us." He is not only hearing, "We made a mistake." He may be hearing, "Failure defines us." But an inherited vocabulary is not an unchangeable destiny. What has been learned can be examined. What has been repeated can be challenged. What fear has planted can be uprooted. What careless speech has wounded can be repaired. So begin to listen, not with condemnation, but with attention. Listen to what the house says when plans fail. Listen to what it says about money, weakness, strangers, sickness, and tomorrow. What the home rehearses, the child remembers. What the child remembers, the child may repeat. What is repeated can begin to govern. And that process becomes unmistakable when we expose the four ordinary languages through which fear most often speaks. Fear usually enters a household wearing ordinary clothes. It sounds practical. It sounds protective. It may even sound humorous. But listen carefully, and you will hear it speaking four distinct languages. The first is the language of scarcity. There is a difference between saying, "We do not have room in the budget for that today," and saying, "We never have enough. People like us will always struggle." The first statement names a present limitation and permits wise action. The second turns limitation into identity, and today's shortage into tomorrow's prophecy. The expense may be real, but hopelessness is an interpretation. The second is the language of danger. Wisdom recognizes risk, gathers facts, establishes boundaries, and takes precautions. Fear does something else. It treats every uncertainty as catastrophe approaching. Something terrible is going to happen. You cannot trust anyone. If you try that, you will only get hurt. Repeated long enough, caution becomes dread. The child is no longer learning how to recognize danger. The child is learning to expect danger everywhere. The third is the language of failure. A poor grade, a missed opportunity, a broken promise, or a foolish choice must be addressed truthfully. But fear moves beyond correction and begins predicting destiny. You never finish anything. You will always make the wrong choice. You are going nowhere. The mistake happened, but permanence was added to it. The failure is a fact from one moment. The prophecy is a verdict fear invented. The fourth is the language of shame. This is where conduct and identity are confused. The child did something careless, and the parent says, "You are lazy." The child struggles to regulate emotion, and the parent says, "You are difficult." The child hesitates, and the parent calls him weak. The child disappoints, and the child is made to feel disappointing. Correction says, "This action must change." Shame says, "You are the problem." Do not overlook sarcasm, jokes, and muttered complaints. A sentence does not become harmless merely because it was delivered with a laugh. If the same joke repeatedly tells a child that the family is doomed, that people are untrustworthy, or that the child is incapable, humor becomes a hiding place for fear. So test the language of your home. Ask of each repeated sentence, what future did it predict? What identity did it assign? What did it imply about the father's care? What action did it encourage wisdom or panic, responsibility or surrender, courage or withdrawal? Listen without condemning yourself. Name the pattern. Separate the fact from the fearful verdict attached to it. Scarcity says there will never be enough. Danger says peace is never safe. Failure says growth is impossible. Shame says love must be earned. Once these voices are exposed, they can be challenged. But one qualification is essential. Replacing the language of fear does not require parents or children to pretend that fear, sadness, uncertainty, and pain are never present. A child says, "I am scared," and the adult answers, "Do not say that. We do not speak fear in this house." A child begins to cry, and the adult says, "If you had faith, you would not be upset." A child asks a difficult question, and the adult treats the question as rebellion. This may sound spiritual, but it is not formation. It is silence imposed upon distress. Faith does not require a child to hide what is happening inside. Fear may be experienced without being enthroned. Pain may be named without being made permanent. Questions may be welcomed without being given final authority. The issue is not whether an emotion appears. The issue is whether that emotion is permitted to define identity, interpret God, and govern the next decision. Suppression says, "Do not feel that." Formation says, "Tell me what you are feeling. Let us listen to it without surrendering to it. Then let us decide together what is true and what we should do." A frightened child first needs to discover that the relationship is safe. Before correction, listen. Before instruction, become calm enough to hear. The racing heart is real, but it is not the child's identity. The disturbing thought is present, but it is not the child's master. The tears are evidence of pain, not evidence of spiritual failure. Parents must also resist the temptation to make children protect the adult's appearance of strength. If a child cannot admit fear because the parent needs the family to look victorious, then confession has become performance. Powerful sentences are being demanded before truth has been understood, received, or trusted. Biblical confession is not noise used to drown emotion. It is truth finding a voice. The heart receives what God has revealed. The mouth learns to agree with it. Conduct begins to follow that agreement. Therefore, do not force a distressed child to repeat words merely to make the moment sound faithful. Help the child see the truth clearly enough that truthful speech can grow from within. When your child is afraid, follow a simple path. Listen without alarm. Tell me what happened. Name the reality accurately. That was painful. Or, we do not yet know what will happen. Reassure belonging. You are loved. You are not facing this alone. Nothing you tell me will make me turn away. Introduce truth appropriate to the moment. Fear is speaking loudly, but it does not know the whole future. God remains faithful, and we can ask for wisdom. Then choose the next wise action. Make the appointment. Check the facts. Offer comfort. Establish safety. Ask for help. Pray together. That is faith-filled parenting. Not denying the storm, but refusing to let the storm name the child. Not silencing emotion, but teaching emotion where to stand. Not pretending certainty, but acting from secure belonging. With honesty protected, we can now learn a repeatable way to speak when pressure enters the room. Name the fact, affirm what remains true, and take the next faithful step. When pressure enters the room, give your family 3 things: truth about the moment, truth about belonging, and truth expressed through action. First, name the fact. A fact is what is known, not what fear imagines, not what shame accuses, not what panic predicts. Say, this bill is larger than we expected. Do not add, we are ruined. Say, the doctor wants to examine this further. Do not add, something terrible must be wrong. Say, you made a choice that caused harm. Do not add, you always destroy everything. Faith does not need exaggeration in either direction. It does not minimize the difficulty, and it does not magnify the difficulty into destiny. The report may be real, but it is not the final authority. Describe the circumstance without giving it a throne. Second, affirm the secure foundation. Before the bill is paid, the family remains loved. Before the medical question is answered, the family is not abandoned. Before the child's mistake is repaired, that child still belongs. Circumstances can change what must be done, but they do not change the father's faithfulness or the child's value. This is where confession becomes more than encouraging speech. It becomes agreement with what God has revealed. We do not know the full answer yet, but we are not alone. We can seek wisdom, we can learn, we can act without surrendering to fear. Third, identify the next faithful action. If you confess that God gives wisdom, then seek wisdom. If you confess that He is your provider, then work diligently, plan responsibly, and ask for counsel. If you confess love over your child, then let that love become patience, correction, protection, and repair. Suppose an unexpected expense arrives. Say, this is more than we planned for. We will not let panic govern this house. We will pray, examine the numbers, revise what must be revised, and seek help if we need it. Suppose illness or danger appears. Say, this needs attention. We are not ignoring it, and we are not facing it as abandoned people. We will gather the facts, receive appropriate care, and take the next wise step. Suppose your child has failed. Say, this decision had consequences, and we must tell the truth about them. But this decision is not your identity. We will repair what was harmed, accept responsibility, and learn a better way. That is not denial. It is governed honesty. Never use confession as a substitute for diligence, treatment, generosity, apology, boundaries, or obedience. Words of faith must not become curtains drawn across neglected responsibility. Faith speaks, and then faith acts. Remember the pattern. Name the fact without enlarging it. Affirm belonging without pretending. Take the next faithful action without delay. Truth about the moment. Truth about belonging. Truth expressed through action. Yet speaking well about circumstances is only half the work. A parent must also learn how to speak identity over a child. without using spiritual language to control the person that child is becoming. There is a difference between declaring truth over a child and using spiritual language to dominate a child. Blessing says, "You belong, you are loved, your life has meaning." Control says, "You must become the person I have imagined, and I will attach God's name to my preference." One reveals a foundation, the other writes a script. Remember the order revealed in the life of Jesus: acceptance before performance, identity before achievement, love before public success. Your child must not have to earn belonging through grades, obedience, talent, confidence, athletic ability, or religious appearance. Correction may be necessary. Consequences may be necessary. Growth will certainly be necessary. But love must not be offered as wages for good behavior. That is why fixed labels are so destructive. A child can act unwisely without being a fool. A child can struggle without being weak. A child can fail without becoming a failure. A child can resist correction without being permanently rebellious. Describe the behavior, address the consequence, preserve the identity. Say, that choice was dishonest, but dishonesty does not have to govern you. You can tell the truth, accept responsibility, and become trustworthy. Say, this subject is difficult for you today, but difficulty is not destiny. You can learn, ask for help, and grow. Words of belonging do not make children irresponsible. They give children a secure place from which responsibility can be accepted. When a child knows, "I remain loved while I face what I have done," confession becomes possible. Correction can be received. Courage can grow. Learning can begin. But do not take this truth and turn it into another instrument of control. Do not say, "God told me you must enter this profession." Do not declare that a quiet child must become outspoken, that an artistic child must become practical, or that your son or daughter must fulfill the ministry, relationship, or future you selected. A parent may guide, discern, pray, and counsel. A parent must not confuse personal preference with divine authority. Bless strongly, but bless openly. You are loved. You can tell the truth without losing your place in this family. You can grow in wisdom. Your gifts can be developed. This mistake does not imprison your future. Then let your conduct agree with your confession. If you call the child accepted, do not withdraw affection to manipulate performance. If you call the child teachable, make room for questions. If you speak courage, allow safe opportunities to try, stumble, and try again. A household culture of faith does not manufacture identical children. It gives different children the same deep foundation: secure love, truthful correction, room to grow, and freedom to mature before God. Yet even a parent who understands this will sometimes speak from panic. That is why the next essential household practice is not perfection, but repair. You lose patience, your voice rises, fear reaches your mouth before truth does, and you say, "You will never change," or "You are going to ruin your future." Then you see the child's face close. The room becomes quiet. You know the words were wrong, but embarrassment whispers, "Leave it alone. Move on. Perhaps they will forget." Do not leave the wound unnamed. There are two false responses to harmful speech. The first is defense. "I only said it because you pushed me too far." The second is condemnation. "I am a terrible parent. I ruin everything." Defense refuses responsibility. Condemnation turns attention back toward the adult. Neither repairs the child. An apology is not collapse. It is calibration. Something drifted from truth, and you are bringing it back into agreement. You are naming what was wrong, accepting responsibility for it, and restoring the meaning fear distorted. Go to your child and speak plainly. "What I said was wrong. I spoke from fear and anger. You did not deserve that label. What happened must still be addressed, but it does not define who you are. Here is what is true about you. Here is what I will do differently." Do not dilute the apology with an excuse. You may explain that you were tired, worried, or under pressure, but pressure reveals a pattern. It does not make the pattern righteous. And do not demand immediate forgiveness simply because you apologized. Your child may need time. Humility gives truth without controlling the response. Repair teaches more than an image of perfect parenting ever could. It teaches that adults can repent. It teaches that authority can accept responsibility. It teaches that relationships can survive honesty. It teaches that fear may speak first, But fear does not have to receive the final word. Most importantly, it teaches that the child's identity is stronger than one reckless sentence. But repaired words require corresponding conduct. If your apology concerns your tone, practice a different tone. If financial panic keeps spilling onto the children, make a plan before opening bills together. If your child has stopped speaking because you interrupt or accuse, learn to listen patiently. If contempt, threats, or degrading labels have become established patterns, seek outside help. Persistent verbal harm must not be renamed as discipline or hidden beneath spiritual language. The goal is not a household in which no one ever fails. It is a household in which failure is brought into the light, truth is restored, and conduct is changed. Repair closes yesterday's breach, but daily rhythm builds tomorrow's instinct, preparing the family before pressure enters again. Think of your household as a reservoir. Ordinary days fill it. Crisis draws from it. When the unexpected call comes, when the money becomes tight, when a child fails, the family will reach for the language it has stored. That is why one impressive declaration cannot outweigh a daily atmosphere of complaint, shame, hurry, and dread. The crisis does not create the household's instinct, it reveals it. So build the language before you need it. Begin in the morning with one truth, not 20 hurried statements. Keep it natural. Keep it connected to the day ahead. We belong to God, and we can ask Him for wisdom today. Or, whatever happens today, we can tell the truth, receive help, and take the next right step. Young children need simple reassurance. Older children can connect the truth to a decision they expect to face. Teenagers should be invited into respectful dialogue, not compelled to perform enthusiasm. Then train the household in specific gratitude. At a meal or during a drive, name something concrete: food received, work completed, help offered, strength for a difficult conversation. Gratitude does not pretend every need has disappeared. It teaches attention not to become captive to what is missing. It says, "This need is real, and so is the provision already among us." When pressure rises, practice a family pause. Stop before the voices escalate. Name the fact. Remember the foundation. Choose the next action. This plan has changed. We are still together. We can seek wisdom, and we will decide what to do next. The pause interrupts fear before fear becomes the interpreter. At the end of the day, ask 3 questions. Where did we speak life today? Where did fear govern our words? What truth or repair should we carry into tomorrow? This is not an evening trial. It is calibration. Celebrate what was aligned. Correct what drifted. Apologize where harm was done. Let tomorrow's morning truth grow from what tonight's reflection revealed. Once a week, go deeper into one theme, not an exhausting collection of unrelated declarations. One theme: provision, courage, forgiveness, wisdom, or belonging. Read a passage. Discuss what it reveals about God and what it asks of the family. Give younger children one sentence to remember. Ask older children where that truth touches real life. Let teenagers question, reflect, and participate without pretending certainty they do not possess. Bless your children regularly, but do not make blessing theatrical. A hand on a shoulder, a sentence before school, a quiet word at bedtime may be enough. You are loved. You can grow. God will give you wisdom as you seek Him. Then let conduct complete the confession. If you speak provision, plan and work responsibly. If you speak generosity, share. If you speak forgiveness, repair the relationship. If you speak compassion, serve someone. If you speak wisdom, listen before deciding. The goal is not intensity. The goal is formation. A 5-minute rhythm that survives busy mornings and tired evenings will shape a household more deeply than an elaborate practice abandoned after 1 week. Morning truth, daily gratitude, a pause under pressure, evening reflection, weekly deepening, words joined to action. That is how truth moves from occasional instruction into the shared instinct of a home. But a rhythm becomes credible only when it survives real pressure. So now, we must test this language inside the moments families actually fear. Suppose income suddenly falls short. Panic says, "We are ruined. Everything is going to fall apart." False positivity says, "There is no problem," and refuses to examine the numbers. Faith speaks differently. We have a real shortfall, but fear will not govern this family. We will pray, review our expenses, work diligently, seek counsel, and ask for help if necessary. Faith neither bows to the numbers nor hides from them. It gives the fact a name, gives God's faithfulness the final authority, and gives responsible action its proper place. Now suppose your child brings home a disappointing result. Shame says, "You are lazy. You will never succeed." Permissiveness says, "It does not matter," because correction feels uncomfortable. Love says, "This result matters, but it does not define you. Let us understand what happened, accept responsibility, and make a better plan." Belonging is preserved, responsibility is required, growth remains possible. Then a health concern appears. Before speaking, the parent must first refuse to pour unregulated alarm into the child. Pause. Gather what is known. Give facts appropriate to the child's age. The doctor wants to learn more about what is happening. Reassure the child, "You are loved, and you will not face this alone." Then pursue appropriate care. Make the appointment. Ask questions. Follow sound guidance. Pray without pretending. Hope without neglecting treatment. Or perhaps a frightening public event dominates every screen. Fear repeats the worst possibilities until the entire house lives inside a catastrophe that has not occurred. Denial refuses discussion altogether. Formed faith limits the flood of alarming voices, welcomes the child's questions, separates verified facts from speculation, and asks, "What wisdom is required? Whom can we help? How can we remain attentive without becoming ruled by dread?" Sometimes the pressure is not outside the family, it is between family members. Saying, "We love one another," is not enough if no one listens, no boundary is respected, and no injury is repaired. Confession must become conduct. Love listens patiently. Love tells the truth. Love refuses contempt. Love forgives, establishes necessary boundaries, and returns to repair what anger damaged. Notice the pattern becoming instinctive. Listen. Separate the fact from the verdict. Affirm belonging. Speak grounded hope. Take the next faithful step. This is not a home where nothing painful is ever said. It is a home where pain is heard but is not crowned. The problem may speak, but it does not interpret everything. Fear may enter, but it does not become the family's master. Not a house without trouble, but a house with a foundation. Not children without questions, but children who know where to bring them. Not parents without fear, but parents who know that fear does not hold final authority. The principle has now been heard, clarified, and tested. What remains is to narrow it to one immediate practice, one deliberate change in the sound of your home beginning today. We began beside a child's bed, with a prayer about God's care. But the question was never merely what the child heard during that prayer. The question was what the child heard when the bill arrived, when patience failed, when disappointment entered, when fear put pressure upon the house. So for the next 7 days, listen to the sound of your home. Do not attempt to correct everything at once. Choose one recurring fear: money, health, failure, danger, conflict, or uncertainty about the future. Then pay attention to what you say about that fear in ordinary moments in the car, at the table, after an inconvenience, during fatigue, and in the heat of conflict. Each evening, ask 3 questions. What did my words predict? What did they tell my child about identity and belonging? What action did they produce? Did your words predict permanent defeat? Did they suggest that love depends on performance? Did they produce wisdom and responsibility, or panic and withdrawal? Then choose one replacement truth. Keep it clear enough for your child to understand, and honest enough for you to embody. This is difficult, but difficulty does not define our family. We do not know the answer yet, but we are loved, accompanied, and able to seek wisdom. You made a mistake, but you are not a mistake. Do not merely say the truth, give it conduct. Prepare for the conversation, review the budget, seek counsel, keep the promise, repair the harm, establish the boundary, give generously, ask for help, let your action agree with your confession. If these 7 days uncover words that wounded your child, go to that child. Do not hide behind authority. Say, "What I said was wrong. Fear spoke through me. You did not deserve that label. Here is what is true, and here is what I will change." Replace the false prediction in the same hearing where it was first planted. The strength of your home does not rest upon your never having a weak moment. It rests upon truth being restored, again and again, to the governing place. Imagine children who can name pain without becoming hopeless, admit failure without becoming ashamed, face uncertainty without living as though they are abandoned, and speak from belonging rather than fear. That formation begins in repeated moments. It begins with the next sentence, the next apology, the next faithful action. Listen to your house. Guard its language. Repair what fear has spoken. Bless without controlling. Act upon the truth. Let your home become a place where faith is heard, because faith is lived.